Hey, welcome back to the Game & Watch podcast. This is episode 56. We're really glad to see you all back here again. And I'm joined by my guests this week. But just before I introduce them, I should probably introduce myself, just because I don't sound like your regular hosts. I've been kind enough to have been bestowed the guest host rights for this week from Finus and Too Tall for You Fool. Should I say F-Dabs, maybe? I think that's one of the names he goes by usually. So I'm very glad to be able to do this for you guys this week. So it's going to be the same kind of show still. Might do a couple of different things along the way, but we'll see how we go. Now, you can watch this on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, wherever you usually go to watch this podcast. And if you do watch it on a regular basis, you can watch it any way you like. And do note that if you would like to support this podcast as well, just watching is obviously the best thing that we could possibly ask for. But you can also subscribe to us on Patreon as well. This is a podcast that's supported by you guys, by the people that we're delivering this to. We don't currently have an ad model, so it would be great if we could get some support from you. If you spend $1.50 a month, that's you giving us a little bit of funds to grow this podcast out a little bit. And it means that you guys get to grow with us as well. So head to patreon.com/OurViewGaming, as this is an Our View Gaming production. And you'll be able to sign up for the Patreon, select a tier, and away you go. It will be great to see some of you guys in there. There's going to be some bonuses in there as well coming soon. Okay, so this week there's been a few big news items, but here to talk about it with me first is your regular frequent flyer, Too Tall for You Fool, or Justin. Welcome back.
What's going on, Matt? How you doing?
Not too bad. Thanks very much. We got Black Cat Celine. She's back again. Good to see you. And we got a new guest host who you may have seen previously on the PlayStation Showcase stream. We've got Mr. Madness.
Yeah, what's up? What's up? What's going on?
Not too much. I've got to say, it's a bit early for me at the moment. The ability for us to get all you guys on the podcast this week meant that I had to bite the bullet where I'm currently, where I am. It's about 4 a.m., which is not always the best, but hopefully I'm showing and exuding some of that manic energy that will eventually dissipate at about 6 a.m. Don't want to lose that energy, though, before we get started. How have you guys all been this week?
I've been good. I mean, just for the most part, just...
It's starting to be fall,
yep.
At least here in the Northern Hemisphere. Not sure for, probably have a better season upcoming down there in Australia.
Yeah, no, we're heading into summer now.
Yeah. So fall's starting, which means it's starting to get cold by me. It was like 40 degrees the other day. That's Fahrenheit. Sorry, I don't know what it is Celsius. So,
That's stressful.
Just too cold. I don't like the cold. I really don't like it. I want it to come.
That's fair.
Well, you should move to the West Coast, and it's never cold out
here. I know. I've been trying, but I'm stuck here. You got a job. I can't move.
That's all right. Yeah. Well, that's really good. I mean, the cold weather coming through for me would be perfect. If we could just do a hot swap, maybe that would be ideal. It means I wouldn't have to take the bullet for the 4 a.m. as well. But yeah, we are approaching summer in Australia. It's always the polar opposite, and it'd be a weird Christmas for you guys too. I think you got a really hot Christmas.
I would love a hot Christmas, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, I'd say come visit, but we're not really at that stage of things on planet Earth yet, are we? that's why it's great that we've got video games to play instead as a means of our escape. And for this podcast, we are going to stick to video games still. And just to give you an idea of where we're going to be going throughout the show, we've got our gaming mentions that we're going to start off with. Just a couple of quick news items just to have a bit of discussion of what's been going on throughout the week. Then we're going to go through the big discussion items. We'll go through some of the stuff that's been going on in the Nintendo Direct that was announced very quickly, I think on Tuesday evening, perhaps, maybe Wednesday, and then premiered on Thursday. And then we've got the release rundown, and then we'll talk about the games that we're playing this week. So why don't we get stuck into some of these big news items? What do you reckon?
Yeah. Just before we start, though, I did do a quick look up. 40 Fahrenheit is just under 4.5 degrees Celsius.
Sounds good to me, regardless.
It's frosty.
I mean, 40 Celsius would be... you and I know that one would be kind of ridiculous.
That's like just under halfway to boiling.
Yes.
You say that, but I think one of the places in Australia recorded one of its highest temperatures in the summer last year. I think it got to about 49 or maybe 53. Yeah. You'd wonder why we're not as populated as you'd expect, but that's probably why. Anyway, let's have a chat about the Steam Deck. There's been a few announcements over the last little while. The Steam Deck is a device being released by Valve very soon. It came as a bit of a surprise announcement a little while ago. But more recently, review and development units have been going out to developers so that they can have a good crack at the device and see what they think. Video Games Chronicle has reported on this, and there's been a lot of reports so far from the developers saying that it's actually pretty good, that they've tested some of their games and they tend to run at the 40 to 60 frame rate that you'd expect from some of the top tier devices. There's also a lot of articles coming out now about the support for anti-cheat that Steam Deck, or rather the operating system that the Steam Deck has, that will support. That means you've got all your multiplayer games that are entirely online that will be available as well. But I think one of the most interesting things is that these developers have been testing their peripheral devices with the Steam Deck, and they seem to be working. Microsoft Flight Simulator X, all of the peripheral controls you'd need to fly an airplane apparently work without much need to add extra stuff. And it seems to only be up to the developers to add the extra ability to use controllers and those peripheral devices with the Steam Deck so far. So it's really good to hear. And it does seem that release of those units is still on track for December. So what do you guys think? Maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Madness, because we haven't heard from you in the podcast yet. Is the Steam Deck something that you're looking to get?
Maybe. I mean, I don't got the $400 to drop on one. If I have somebody gave me one, I wouldn't say no. It's an interesting unit that I'm not quite sure has an exact demographic. Yeah, it's nice that all these things run on it, but who's really going to be using a flight simulator joystick and playing a flight simulator sim on a little tiny 7-inch screen? I just don't see that happening, really.
Well, I guarantee you, we're going to see pictures on Twitter.
Yeah, someone's going to do it.
Oh, I don't doubt it. It would be nice. It's just there's nothing on PC right now that I can't play on anything else. So for me, as somebody who has a Switch and an Xbox Series X, it's not really in my wheelhouse. That's not to say that in the future, if it doesn't have like Oculus support, I might be way more interested in it. That's really what would get me excited.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing. That I know we addressed it on a previous podcast as well, but that gap, that small niche that it seems to target, is very slight.
It's probably bigger than we actually think. There's probably a lot of people that, I mean, they sold out a pre-order, so I don't know how many that is. So there's going to be a lot of people that are playing it. I just don't know how many exactly that is. Like, what's the total overall number?
Well, I think you said the right thing there, that the reach is going to be larger than we expect, because they've, like, usually you expect with a device that is this niche, that they'd set out their market and that would be it. But they're starting to add more and more things to the Steam Deck, which means that their net is incredibly wide. That the very few people who are going to pick this up are probably going to be from a very broad gaming background. Like last week on the podcast, we talked about the RetroArch that works on Steam.
Right.
If it's got adaptability for Linux,
if it's like the ultimate portable emulator, people will buy it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Tutol, is that something that has piqued your interest over the last while?
Yeah, I mean, the emulation community is going to have a field day with this, in my opinion. So I'm just looking to see what developers do with it, because it's going to be pretty big once it gets out there. I mean, I know the pre-orders have sold out, but I predict this thing selling at least 5 million units over time as soon as it's released onto the streets and all that good stuff.
5 million. Well, we do know that pre-orders...
Maybe more, maybe less.
That's a lot of people trying to enjoy themselves in perhaps their quiet time in their bathrooms, perhaps. But we do know that pre-orders are currently pushed out a very long way. I don't think it's possible to order a unit that will come earlier than July next year, I think.
Just for reference sake, the Steam machine sold less than 500,000.
That is incredibly good by comparison. Wow. I didn't even think to look that up, but the Steam machine was the product Valve tried to sell as a proposition for a console with Steam wrapped up inside it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it did not go over very well.
I'm pretty sure it didn't.
Don't you love dropping $2,000 on a computer in the age when you could spend $1,000 on it yourself from Alienware? Wouldn't you want to buy a console that's horrendously overpriced and inflated? It's really good to see that they fixed that up, though. Celine, did you want to throw something in there?
Well, as I mentioned during the test we did prior to coming back out in August, we are expecting a Steam Deck. Apollo's, my husband's, ordered one. So he was one of he ordered on like the day of it. So they were expecting one in January. So it'll be interesting to see, because we hopefully will have a new place by then. But worst case, we'll be hopping around. But so I could see him alternating between Steam Deck and navigation while going from one place to another, really.
As long as he's your co-pilot and not the pilot, that's perfectly fine.
You said January you're expecting it?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, because now availability is after Q2 2022. So
July would be the earliest.
Yeah, a while if you haven't bought one yet.
Yeah,
but
they're doing a reservation system. So basically, the sooner you got in, the sooner you're getting it. And then they're honoring people who came first.
It sounds like that's the perfect case for you to use it, though. If you're on the move all the time and you really want access to that Steam library, then it's perfect for you guys, I'd say.
I think it will be, yeah. But yeah, it's, we don't know how long we'll be on the road as such. It'll just be when we find the right place, you know?
Yeah.
Well, awesome. One thing I will say, it's not going to be a Nintendo Switch killer like everyone was predicting early on. So I think a lot of people were kind of over that. And from what I was seeing with when you dock it, I guess it only does like 720p or something like that. So,
yeah, it does. It doesn't have a boosted frame rate and resolution increase when you do dock it. So it's it's not built to be that kind of thing, though. And I'd guess over time the battery life would reduce as well, just like with any product. But you know,
right? On a screen that small, the resolution difference isn't really going to be that much of a difference if you're playing it portable. If you're docking it, then that is a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably them buying into the niche too. 800 is not too bad.
800,
anyway,
800p, not 720.
It's really good to know that you guys are excited for the Steam Deck still. And I'd say that's going to be how it rolls from now on, that just steadily climbs, just like with anything Valve does. They've got that full backing for whatever they release, and they just let it go up over time.
If they really had trouble with it, all they had to do was make Half-Life 3 exclusive to the Steam Deck, and it would sell 10 million.
I don't know if we want to dive on that bomb just yet.
No,
but
but I'm
you're
just
absolutely
saying.
right.
That would be if anybody else wanted to do just sell Half-Life 3. They wouldn't have a problem selling a single one.
And they haven't 100% said no to Half-Life 3, have they?
They don't know how to
there's
count
been
to
little
3,
stories
so.
around there. I'm sure everyone's hanging out for that Left 4 Dead 3 and all the other 3s as well.
Portal 3. Team Fortress 3.
Yada 3. Dang.
The 3 box. That's what we need with the Steam Deck. You never know, that might be what drops with the release of the product. That could be pretty ridiculous. Anyway, let's talk about another product just while we're on the subject of getting access to more games. Xbox Game Pass seems to be doing a really good job of throwing its games around and throwing its weight around at the moment. I myself have bought into it for the last couple of months just because of the value add that you're getting from the day one releases and just the ridiculous amount of games that's included with it. More recently, there's a couple of day one editions that have been announced. We've got Lemnis Gate, Phoenix Point, Back for Blood, and Age of Empires 4, all coming up very soon, with a lot more to come. What do you guys reckon of Game Pass so far? Have any of you bought into it and jumped on the games that are available there?
Well,
I've had a game. I've had it since day one. So you want to start, you can go ahead. But
all right,
I have a lot to say.
What I was saying is, I have not bought into it mainly because it's just I feel I can play something on my PS5 or Switch. I just feel I wouldn't be getting the value for it. I'd rather just buy the game and display it at my convenience since they are taking stuff off of it here and there. So I mean that's my take on it. But I think it is good. Like if Xbox is like your one or only one of two consoles that you game on, then you pretty much got nothing to lose. But for me, I mean, I buy a lot of games, so I think I'd just be sitting on like some of the games if I were tripping out that type of money a month. But what about you, Madness? I know you're a big Xbox Game Pass user.
I'm an Xbox guy. That's my system of choice. I've had Game Pass since day one. I was real excited for it. It was kind of slow for a while. But once Microsoft really started saying, "Hey, we're going to put all our first party titles on there," and I was like, "Yep, you've got me for life." Essentially, I'm saving $60. I don't have to buy these games anymore. Really, you have to buy the DLC. Like for Forza, I will probably buy the DLC. But Forza Horizon 4, I had it day one. I'll have Halo day one. I've played Sea of Thieves. There's so many games I never would have probably bought because I didn't want to spend the money on it that I played through Game Pass. So many games. And my kid, too, he loves a lot of games that are on Game Pass. So there's a lot of different things. You don't have to worry about if he hates it, whatever. It doesn't cost me anything extra. It's sweet for that. PlayStation has a similar service. I don't know if you've ever used the PlayStation Now, which I have also used as well. It's just not as good. The title variety just isn't there. But that's not to say that it couldn't be there. The streaming of the games doesn't always work the best. Maybe it's the PS4's internet connection isn't always the best. But you can download games on it, but you're kind of limited as to what you can do there. But Game Pass, I'm a subscriber for life. So
it's a very, very interesting point about the PlayStation service notoriously not having a good throughput rate for anyone trying to download a product. I know
it worked better on my PC than my PS4, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I know that whenever I would update my PS4 with system updates, it would take forever. And I mean, you have to take a little bit of a grain of salt there with the poverty Australian internet. But it still took a very long time to do that. I can't imagine them being able to stream a product during that time.
I have gigabit internet, and it was still choppy.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's like trying to take a garden hose and throw it down a sewer pipe. It's just not filling the bandwidth that you got. I'm agreeing with all the sentiments though. Xbox Game Pass as a value add is ridiculous now. It's like buying into an arcade for your personal use whenever you want. And even this week, I played a game that I never would have considered. If you want to check it out, audience, it's Crimson Son of Flynn, I think, or something like that. It's a very retro game, one that you would have looked at, and if it was $20, you probably wouldn't have spent the money on it. But it got a day one release on Game Pass, so I jumped in and had a go, and it turned out I had a really good time.
Did you finish it?
I did. Yep, it was didn't take too long to do, but it's not about the completion at the end of the day. As long as you have a good time, that's the important thing. And that's the thing too, that when you buy into Game Pass, you're not afraid to drop a game because you haven't dropped all of that $60 sometimes into it to justify the cost. With Game
I
Pass,
haven't
you
even
don't
heard of this
worry about
game really until you talked about it. But now looking at it, it's my jam. I'm going to download it right now as we record.
Yeah, he
There you
put it in the Discord under new releases. So yeah, definitely check it out. I checked it out last night. It looks pretty cool. I'll definitely give it a go.
It played like it in terms of the way that the game is experienced. It pushed aside all the doubts I had about it within the first 10 minutes, which is crazy for a game. It's also produced by Humble. So we know that the broad reach of the Xbox Game Pass is not just for Microsoft-owned products. But yeah, it's just the value add. You got the EA Play, you've got Bethesda games in there. It's just pretty crazy. And it'll be interesting to see what they come up with next year as games start emerging from the COVID development hell that some of them are currently in.
Yeah.
Okay, next big topic is the Nintendo Direct that happened on Thursday this week. We're not going to go too far into it just because it's our big discussion topic for this week. But what were your guys' quick thoughts and reactions? Celine, do you want to kick us off with this one?
It was definitely a bit of a roller coaster for me. So, like the announcements of announcements always grind my gears. So there was that bit, and then the addition of N64 and Genesis games. My first reaction to seeing the Ocarina of Time title screen was, "It's on another console, really?" Because it's been on every single console since the N64, and whether it was to buy directly or as a bonus, and like it was on the GameCube.
Is that true? Was it on the Wii U too? I'm struggling to think.
Yeah,
I think it was on like the
I think it
storefront.
was.
Okay.
Yeah, the virtual console, I believe.
Yeah,
okay.
It was definitely on the virtual console. But on the other hand, the fact that we have the expansion for Monster Hunter Rise being announced. So, do you guys have any of you played Monster Hunter previous games before? Do you know much about that?
I haven't, but I'm very aware of the entire ecosystem and fan base around that game. There's even a movie, wasn't there?
Yeah, we haven't watched that yet, but a big
Is
thing.
there a movie? How did I miss that?
Yeah, same.
I must have not
To
been
be
very
honest.
good. And I'm a movie guy, and I didn't even know they made a Monster Hunter movie.
Yeah, it was a Mia Jovovich film. So if you're a fan of the Resident Evil stuff, that might be
I'm not though.
your jam as well.
They're not good.
That might be why
Anyway.
you missed it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
so they didn't start doing this outside of Japan until Monster Hunter World, but every single Monster Hunter game, a year after release, it gets a massive expansion with what they now call the Master Rank missions. In World, it was Iceborne, and Sunbreak is going to be that. So that's something to look forward to. And the other one for me was Bayonetta 2. Why did I say 2? Bayonetta 3, because because Bayonetta, enough said. I'll save the commentary on that I've on my observations for later.
Curious. Bit of a teaser. What about you, lads? What did you think of the Direct?
It was definitely on the higher tier of the Rex. I think I'm going to get into a rant about some things, so I'll save it for the discussion a little later on. So, Madness.
Hey, the biggest announcement was the Mario movie. Okay, I don't care what y'all think.
Save it.
That's
Save
the
it.
biggest announcement.
Save it.
Yeah,
I have
that is
many things to say about it.
huge one, and I don't think there's any corner of the internet that would not know about the movie, though some may not even know about the Nintendo Direct.
Probably not.
Definitely. Definitely persisted, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. Glad to hear your thoughts, though. Sounds like there was equal parts excitement and disdain and surprise. And for Nintendo Directs, from what I understand, that's not expected of all of them. So we'll see how we go a bit later on in the show.
Yeah, usually when they announce it with almost no hype behind it, it's not as big. But this one was kind of big, surprisingly.
It's very humble, though, isn't it? They kind of they keep the cards close to their chest most of the time, don't they? Yeah. Anyway, very quick public service announcement for PlayStation users, having just discussed it earlier. Apparently, there's a PS4 system update that's come out that fixes a CMOS battery issue. That's CMOS battery. This is the one that keeps the internal clock running in your device. And apparently, there was a problem when that battery ran out that devices wouldn't start again. So, lucky for us, the most recent system update that's come out has fixed that issue, along with another number of other updates that came along with it, including being able to see your PS5 trophies in the PS4 system, which apparently you didn't have that ability before. Not sure why. And there's been some message updates included there with some parental controls added. Now, I didn't do any research on this. I probably should have, but there's been a few reports flying around of PS4 devices being bricked because of system updates. Have any of you heard anything about this?
Not in particular. I mean, I updated my system. I didn't play a game on it. I probably should try playing a game to see if it's bricked. But I mean, I updated the system as soon as I heard that update came out. But no, I have not heard of any. Maybe like one.
Okay. No, I haven't heard much, and all this really did remind me that I need to update my PS5. It's been a while. I haven't really been using it that much. I used it mostly for PSVR. Yeah. That's my big thing. But I have an Oculus now, so
I can see that.
I haven't really needed it. Yeah,
looks nice.
Yeah, that's good.
I should do a podcast while on the Oculus.
No, mine hasn't bricked either. So I fired up Tales of Vesperia on mine not too long ago, and I did have to run the updates for that, and I had no trouble. Now, to clarify with the CMOS thing, so what happens is if you have to replace the CMOS battery, it has to connect to PlayStation servers in order to reboot. So that gave it effectively a shelf life, and there was some backlash for that. So that's what they're resolving. Mine's A-okay.
Yeah, I'm really glad to get the perspective from you guys, because I'm a bit more of a PC gamer. When I hear you've got CMOS battery issues, I'm like, just whip that sucker out and replace it as you like. Obviously not the most simple thing to do with a product developed where you're not expecting the people who have the device to just do that stuff yourself. Although in saying that, right to repair is becoming a bit of a thing at the moment. They might make that a bit easier for consumers to do without having to approach a third-party vendor. But that's a discussion for a different podcast, I think.
Yes. That's a big other discussion.
Matt, quick question. Hey, quick question. Are you going to update yours PS4?
I probably should. Being of a technical bent, I tend to get very panicked, understanding that there was a stage in time where iOS devices couldn't be updated if the operating system had been left for too long. I really need to throw that update out there. But I tend to wait for these updates anyway. The best policy when you've got new stuff coming out is to wait for a few people to take it for a test run, let their red rings happen, and then the company fix all the problems before you get the update yourself.
This is true, but in a world where you play online games, you have to have the update.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more of an issue. And one day, maybe we can do a PC-only episode where I get to have a big gripe and a problem with Windows 10 and how little control we have over our own computers with the way that those updates work. Because if you imagine a system update in your console, it tells you, hey, we've got this thing, download it. Would you like to? Sure, okay. And then you do all your confirmations. Whereas Windows does all this stuff in the background for you, including downloading it and installing it, potentially without telling you at all, which is ridiculous.
It's good that way. Shh. It's good that way.
No, Mr. Gigabit Internet over there, of course.
Shh, quiet.
Win Poverty Australian Internet, if you're, trying to do a podcast, for example, and your entire operating system is trying to download an update that it can't store on a device that has a hard drive that's full, you can run into a bit of an issue. But
Ooh,
anyway,
boy.
I don't want to gripe now. It's just going to be too long a podcast if I do. Let's shuffle over across to retro games a little bit. What Are Games has been the subject of a couple of podcasts with us so far. And more recently, there was a water-rated game for 9.6, a Genesis Sonic the Hedgehog that sold for about $430,000. I think that's USD. And Yuji Naka, the Sega boss, came out and said, that is pretty crazy. I think it was on Twitter that he said that. And that kind of surprise is endemic of the entire problem that's coming up, mostly through What Are Games and those fraud allegations that are coming out all over the place. Now, it was speculative, at least for a portion of it, when the overall inflated market fraud was brought to light, although the CEO of What Are Games has been caught out selling games, which breaks an internal policy they have where they won't sell their own water-rated games, presumably for fear of conflict
fixing
of interest there. Yeah, exactly. No CEO would want to look like they're benefiting from their company's endorsed products, and obviously having quick access to that stuff too.
It's all a giant scam. That's all it is. I really don't like it.
Just the economy, like capitalism, is generally a scam, isn't it?
all that kind of stuff is. The whole art world is in the same boat. It's just a way of pushing money from one person to another.
Too Tall, you've been keeping a close eye on this. Do you want to give us your opinion on that inflated market and how it's progressed?
I feel that just something shady, I think, is going on behind the scenes, and until it's just going to keep going on until like there's proof of actually like money laundering going on, and then that's when the feds would get involved. But until then, you're going to be seeing these graded games being sold at these ridiculous prices, and I just feel bad for the people who are trying to send in their games to get graded, because it's just like they're not going to get that kind of money. And I just hope that people understand that, it's just rigged, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's rigged. It's just going to inflate the retro gaming market, unfortunately. And I mean, I'm not for it. Like, the only thing we could do is just ask them for true reports of how many of this type of game we have in the wild that's going on. But I mean, at least Sonic the Hedgehog hasn't gotten to 500,000 yet or 1 million yet. So, I mean, it was only a matter of time before a non-Nintendo game would sell for that high. So, the thing we've seen so far is just pretty much Nintendo.
Right. What bothers me the most is that these aren't even rare games.
No.
They're some of the most common games made for each of these systems. How many people had a Genesis and didn't have a Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah, I guess over time it becomes the rarity of the quality. Like, this isn't just some old off the shelf one that's sold for $430. It was a 9.6 water rated game.
A 9.6 sealed Sonic. I get it. Sonic, the original 9.6. Sonic, is hard to find in that case because most of it was a pack-in title. But there are actual games out there. If they were mint, would probably be worth on that scale a lot more. To me, it's just always these common games,
like
that people
Ninja Turtles tournament fights,
or even some of the Genesis stuff is real weird. But give me a Flintstones, Dino. What is it? Danger at Dino Peak or whatever it is. The super rare Flintstones one on Super Nintendo. Like, that fetches crazy money loose.
Yeah.
But you never see these super rare ones get graded and come up for auction. That's a big trigger for me.
I think this is the big question about it too, that I really wanted to ask you guys. That is there. What's the best way to put this? The economy that's driving this now, like, once people who aren't gaming enthusiasts get their hands on this stuff, that's when the economy starts swirling in a way where the money drives all of that retro gaming economy. But are there still people out there that are looking for this water rating of 9 or above just for their own personal enjoyment? or are they looking entirely at the money-driven side of it? They're looking to get that monetary value to be the highest point.
It's probably like 90% money, 10% actual
Yeah,
collectors.
money.
Okay.
Money for sure. I don't think any of these guys
people
care
that
about
are
video games personally.
Yeah. It's the same people that when they started speculating with Bitcoin. You want to jump on that, drive the prices higher, get the money, escape with the money early while you can, and then let everybody else fall out.
That's what the smart people did, I think,
Yeah.
with crypto. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting thing to look into, because there are always going to be the fans who just want to purchase it for the having of it, and then the ones that are driven only by money. Really unfortunate thing, but look, in a capitalist world, money makes the world go round, and retro games aren't exempt in that respect, I guess.
Yeah, it sucks, but I mean, yeah, it's very sad to see this, but I mean, what can we do? It's probably going to keep happening until they have legit evidence to go after these guys. Until then, just
today it's Genesis and or Mega Drive for you not United States people games. Tomorrow to be another record-setting Super Nintendo, and then they're just gonna, every time it's a new record, you see that blast be put out, so more and more people see it. It's just this churn, and eventually the market will crash, just like NFTs have crashed. And I don't want to get into NFTs. This is not that podcast, but that market has crashed.
No. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that was very quick. I imagine this is going to be a slow burn.
Crashed and burned.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think consoles have their limit. I think Xbox 360 was coming up on 20 years at some point, maybe the next couple
15
this year.
15 years.
15.
The original
15
Xbox. The original Xbox is 20 years this year.
Okay, so
Yeah,
20 years
original.
is sometimes the limit for retro for a few people. Maybe we'll start seeing Xbox games in the rotation that start getting rated, but eventually they're going to hit the cap with the consoles that are online driven and mostly digital games, and that's going to be a very interesting retro time. Maybe that's the point at which something like NFTs becomes more of a thing, getting rated games that are entirely digital, and in that respect, an entirely homogenous product as well. Like, what's
You're
the
giving me a
difference?
headache. You're giving me a headache. Don't make me think about that.
Let's talk about it in a few years. Now, talking about headaches, I realize we don't want to bring it up too often, but there has been news on the front of Activision Blizzard. They were more recently hit by a lawsuit from the Californian government. I think it was the Housing Commission, or at the very least, one of those governing bodies that rules on how you treat your employees, and a lot of sexism, misogynism, a lot of allegations against their treatment of the employees, has come out over the last couple of months. And then this week, the SEC hit them with a subpoena for a potential lawsuit on that front as well. Now, I'm not going to profess to be an expert of how America works, but as I understand it, the Securities and Exchange Commission is focused on the financial side of things. So the SEC throwing the book at Activision Blizzard means that they're probably looking into some of the monetary practices that may have revolved around the allegations made by the Californian government in this respect. So that could be maybe stock manipulation. It could be how they delivered money back to their investors, maybe jilted their investors. And with the amount of head honchos there leaving Blizzard in droves, and some perhaps a few months beforehand, because there have been reports that some of them knew about this, the whole lawsuit a couple of months before it actually came out. It's probably looking into the books a little bit to see if they tried to exploit this to their advantage.
Right. The SEC is probably looking into if high-level people who knew about these allegations sold off stocks before everything started happening. And that is insider trading, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's the SEC's main thing, isn't it? Make sure that everything is on the
SEC's main thing is to pretend like they look like they actually care about regulating the stock industry, but they don't. They find these people, they don't really punish them, and then they just move on. They say, "Oh, you were bad, don't do it again," But they don't really ever get that much done other than fining people. And it's sad, but they probably did sell stuff before these allegations came out. And I haven't looked at the stock, so I don't know how much of a dive it's taken recently.
Yeah, it would have been advantageous for them to jump on it very quickly if they were going to sell
it was $100 a share back in June, and now it's hovering at about 70. So that's a big chunk.
Especially for a big company with a game that just released. Diablo 2 Resurrected was this week.
And you got Call of Duty coming up in 2 months, so it's trending down for reasons that are not actually financially related.
Directly. That's.
I'm not a big fan of Bobby Kotick. I'm not a big fan of Activision Blizzard as a whole. So I've gone out of my way to essentially boycott their games for the time being, or at least not spend any money. Like, you can play their games and not spend a single dime.
Game Pass.
Like Destiny 2.
I don't feel like that's a problem, but I'm not gonna go out of my way and buy Call of Duty. But I do play Hearthstone from time to time, but I have never actually spent a single penny in it.
No, Hearthstone has been one of the better ones for that, I think. But on this side of things, everyone will choose what they elect to do. It's interesting, Mr. Madness, that you've decided to boycott the games, because there's very few people I've run into so far that have intended to very specifically, if only because they don't want the developers and the people who contributed to the game, who may have suffered under this unfortunate regime.
For me, it's not. It sounds like, oh yeah, I'm boycotting. I'm never. It's not really for me. It's not really that hard. The only Activision game I really play is Call of Duty. Everything else, StarCraft, Warcraft, Spyro, Overwatch. I don't play those games.
Crash.
So if Crash Bandicoot, I mean, I might play the new one if it came out on Game Pass, but their games don't come out on Game Pass, and it's not really hard to go out to say, like, I'm not going to buy Call of Duty. I'm not going to buy Call of Duty. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not buying Call of Duty just because of the fact that it just doesn't look very interesting to me this year. But I mean, I bought the one last year. I mean, I'll still play it from time to time. But I mean, if I see an Activision game I like, I will play it. I mean, just for the simple fact that, you want to support the people who did work behind the game. So, if it's a game you really do want to play, you want to support the developers behind. I mean, for the most part, they had nothing to do with that bullshit that's going on over at Activision Blizzard, So definitely support the games. Don't take it out on them. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'll play it for free. That's me.
Yeah, I think for me, I just say, vote for focus on the kind of games you want the executives to deliver, because they're obsessed with the numbers. So if you don't want, I stopped playing Assassin's Creed after not being able to finish Unity and Syndicate, but it's nothing to do. That was before the whole fiasco with Ubisoft having a similar fiasco. The problem was they were just losing appeal to me. If I have the Spyro Reignited trilogy, because Spyro's got a special place in my heart. We do have the Insane trilogy for Crash Bandicoot. That's because those are the kind of games we enjoy, and I want the executives to know that I'm not interested in Call of Duty or, like I mentioned this on the podcast, like I called the Xbox 360 the perfect console. Oh, sorry, was it? No, Xbox One is the perfect console if your favorite things are football, racing, and shooting. And if you like none of those things, you're pretty dang stuffed.
That's not that true. There's plenty of it out there. It's just not as prevalent as like the PlayStation. There's plenty of
and
weird
not
stuff.
Exclusive.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll give you that much. I'll give you that much.
I do like. Wait, are we talking American football or like soccer? I like them
soccer because that's.
I do like racing, shooters, and football and sports games. Really, that's me. I mean, but I do like weird games too.
For its time, the Xbox was very much the, I guess, the redneck of the console world in that sense, and the PlayStation was considered where you go for Japanese games. Whereas now that pool is kind of muddied a little bit. well, not muddied, but diluted, perhaps, where the consoles have expanded out a tiny bit, and they have a broader range of games available.
The Japanese games on PC a lot. That's what I've seen is the biggest difference. Is they've started releasing a lot of these very niche RPGs on PlayStation and PC.
Yes.
So I've seen things like that happening a lot more, and you're never going to see them on Xbox, really. If they took 10 years for a Yakuza game to come out on Xbox.
Yeah,
I did try it. It wasn't really my thing, though. Sorry, Celine. I know you like the Yakuza. Right? I think you said you liked those games. I just couldn't get into them.
Yeah, like I do generally like RPGs, but so I think it's because like I enjoy the storytelling element and like the characters and how they kind of pan out. That's why Tales of is a very special place in my heart because the skits really make it for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't want us to get too far off topic here because that was about Activision Blizzard. I think we've said our piece on that one. We're starting to get on in time a little bit, so I'll just quickly say, based on the current results of the court case from Apple versus Epic, this is a bit of background for anyone who might not be aware. Epic made a big shot across the bow last year when they tried to introduce a method of its users of Fortnite on the iOS product to get them to purchase. I've forgotten what it's called now. Fortnite
V-Bucks.
V-Bucks. That's it.
Yeah, V-Bucks.
To purchase those V-Bucks outside of the iOS system, and this flew right in the face of Apple's policy to exist on their store. So they got a takedown almost immediately, and then Epic threw its toys out the pram and threw a lawsuit at them saying, you can't do this. This is not what you can do. And of course, the courts have come back and pretty much said that, yes, they can do that. Only one caveat came from that case for Apple, where they do have to permit a means for apps to have a third-party solution available to them without Apple taking a 30% cut of whatever money they make on that end. So that's still on its way, rolling into the product. But more recently this week, they have said, Apple has very explicitly said that Epic will not be getting its developer accounts back, which means its games, Fortnite, and whatever other products they have on the iOS store won't be available either. And the reason for this, they said they didn't want to release the accounts back to them until the court proceedings had concluded, and this can go for up to 5 years. So I don't think Fortnite's going to be in the iOS store for a very long time, unless some big groundbreaking change takes place.
Well,
just
very
very
if you live in Korea, you can actually get Fortnite on the Apple Store and the iOS store.
Okay.
Because of Korean law.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Give us a bit of enlightenment.
I don't know. When I was doing some research on it, they basically Korean law says that you can't do essentially what they're doing to Epic. So you can still download it in Korea, or at least just South Korea.
Okay.
It's still available on the store.
Did it sound like that was like a monopoly thing, where it's like anti-monopoly behavior, where if a product is intended to be available, then you have to stock it? You can't choose whether you have it or not?
It has to do with the in-app payment systems. They're about to pass a law that says you have to allow developers to have their own in-app purchasing systems in place.
Okay. And that's probably the most interesting thing here, right? That it is possible for Apple to do this for the developers hosting on their platform, but they don't do it. Yeah.
30% is a gigantic cut. I'm sorry. But 30% for what? 30% to process a payment of virtual dollars? Really? Like, that's a lot of money. They could have just made this all go away and said, okay, 15%, done.
Yeah, just a better number. That's it. But
I think Epic wanted to make a big song and dance about it, and I think some might argue that they didn't go about it the right way. But in any case, it does reveal these big, groundbreaking aspects that are really bad for the market and are very monopolizing for anyone using the platform, particularly for anyone in the Apple ecosystem.
For Apple, it doesn't really matter for Google. You can just sideload anything you want on an Android device and just play it. It doesn't really matter. Apple's very, very closed.
Yeah, it has to pretty much be unlocked if you're trying to sideload anything.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's why they call what other systems say call routing jailbreaking, right?
Yeah.
But, case in point, I watched Upper Echelon Gaming's essay piece about this, and very good point brought up. They had that ad chat for hashtag free Fortnite ready because they knew this was coming, because full-blown CGI animation, that takes weeks of work at least. So they knew what they were doing, and of course now they haven't gotten their way. So of course Tim Sweeney is having a meltdown on Twitter and whatnot. And frankly, I think Epic's kind of getting what they're deserved on that front. Yes, they might be highlighting some points that Apple could do better, to put it diplomatically. But they're not doing it for the little guy. They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Very early on, is the cinematic or the graphical thing they quickly put together that you're referring to, that 1984 clip?
Because remember, they would have to have made those assets from the ground up.
That's it. And it was a very divisive approach as well, because the target audience for that 1984 reference isn't necessarily going to understand it either.
No.
But that hashtag free Fortnite thing, that was the big point. But yeah, I don't think anyone at this stage is denying that they had done that preparation beforehand. The way that they slapped lawsuits around within a couple of days of it all happening too, I think they were very prepared. But anyway, we'll see how that evolves over time. I'm sure it'll be an interesting segment to have maybe once or twice a year as these court proceedings shake out. But we might move on from the gaming mentions now and move into the big topic, the Nintendo Direct that we teased a little bit earlier. Just to give you guys in the audience a bit of an idea, there was a number of big game releases. A lot of them are tentpoles as part of the Nintendo platform. We've got Kirby Forgotten Lands coming in spring 2022. Celine's already mentioned we had Bayonetta 3 announced there too, coming in 2022 as well. Monster Hunter Rise, again, Celine, you're on top of it for us this week. Splatoon 3, Return of the Mammalians. That one's coming out too. And there's been a number of new releases for Switch, though it has been released on other platforms before. We've got Disco Elysium, ActRaiser Remastered, Voice of Cards, The Isle of Dragon Roars, which I thought was a very interesting one. Metroid Dread, which has been announced for a little while. Deltarune Chapter 2, which I think has been making the rounds in other places as well. Shin Megami Tensei 5, I think that's been released in other places. If not, that's a new Switch release, a new Nintendo release as well. And I'm sure there's ones that I've forgotten there, but what did you guys think of the new releases? Celine, why don't we start with you and you talk about Bayonetta 3? I think you teased it quite adequately at the beginning of the show.
So 2 big observations that I made, one of which I did point out on the Discord server. They have definitely linked Astral Chain and Bayonetta's worlds together, because we had the mascot for the police department in Astral Chain appear there, Loppy the dog. And then I noticed in her character design, she's actually they've almost incorporated designs from Cereza, as we've seen from the first game, particularly the braids with the red cord put into it. So that was quite interesting for me in terms of aesthetics and world. And yeah, it's just I'm quite keen to see how there definitely seems to be new mechanics going in there as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those pan out.
I'm not a huge Bayonetta fan, but there seemed to be a lot of dancing in that announcement trailer. I'm not sure if that's common. Is it?
It's not. Previously, when she summons demons, she's just standing still, and this time it does seem to be more active, shall we say. I don't know. So maybe the idea is that her powers have developed somehow. We'll have to see.
Well, it could be something tying together with the Switch motion controls, couldn't it? Maybe you do certain actions with the Joy-Cons as their... I didn't even know what they
Not
would
enough
be.
games use the Joy-Con motion stuff, really. It's just not a lot.
No,
I almost forgot that they had it.
Yeah, not really.
The only ones that do are specifically aimed for it. I've got fitness boxing, and that does it, but for obvious reasons, really.
Yeah.
Well, Pokemon Snap does it too, but I don't think I've ever used it.
was it?
Skyward Sword does,
Arms
but
and I
you can
think
turn it off.
Mario Party.
Mario
Yeah.
Party does use
Yeah,
it.
Arms and I think Mario Party. Mario Party does use it. Yeah.
Haven't played Mario Party in a while, but you're right.
I did hear that Skyward Sword had some motion control in there, though.
Yeah, because the original
Yeah, it
Wii
does.
version did.
The
You
most
can't turn it
surprising
off,
thing,
it says.
the ActRaiser remastered. That's a little surprising to me.
Yeah,
Who was asking for a remaster of ActRaiser? So
Well, I don't think
It looks
anyone is
nice.
looking fondly
It looks
back
nice.
on the
I like it.
direct. They're not looking
that was
back
a
and
weird
saying
one.
ActRaiser. Yeah. Yeah, do you guys familiar with ActRaiser from when it was
Nope.
released?
I
Was it
played the
around?
first one like when it came out for Super Nintendo 30 years ago. It wasn't really my jam then, and like they haven't made an ActRaiser game in 30 years, almost. So it's been a long time. And for it to get announced, like kind of thrown in like the the montage video. Oh, by the way, we remastered ActRaiser and it's out today. Like the most like Nintendo Switch always manages to have one kind of surprise in their directs, and you're like, really, like that? But I guess somebody wants it. Somebody's probably going to buy it.
Well, having a look at when
Interesting.
products release, ActRaiser could be the remastered, could be them testing the waters for development of a new ActRaiser sequel or something, perhaps.
Maybe.
Hey, give me more. If they make it Metroidvania style, give me more of that. Okay, that's like my favorite type of game, other than like a first-person shooter or like a sports game. I love Metroidvania style games, so the more of that style, the better for me. So if they want to make ActRaiser into that, I'll buy it.
I'm not sure if it was in the direct at the time, but I think more recently, Castlevania versions of Castlevania has been announced as well. Was that this week too?
Yeah, the Castlevania collection.
Castlevania Advance.
Yeah, I think they had like a flying mention of it. Nothing, they didn't linger on it really. I think it's one of those like quick cards sort of things.
Okay. Tell me, is anyone excited for Kirby? Okay.
I played. What was the last Kirby game? I've played all of them, like at least in passing. They don't really grab my. They're so easy. They're really for kids that want to like the first 4 step into that style of game. They're very, very easy games.
I think at the moment, and I could be wrong about this again, you guys are the Nintendo experts, but it's the post Super Smash Brothers kind of canon that would be driving this much more than the retro side of it, I think. There have been more gaming discussions about Kirby absorbing powers and how that works in other universes rather than Kirby fought that tree and how cool was that? And he spat acorns at it. It was brilliant.
Probably.
I think the way he sits in the whole ecosystem might be where that drive is.
Kirby's are good. They're good games. Okay. This is the first 3D Kirby game. So I am a little bit hyped about it. Hopefully Nintendo will throw a demo out there
interesting. It looks interesting. I think it's a great step for me, quite frankly. I'm interested to see what it does, and if it's anything on the lines of like Mario Odyssey, why not? I'll pick it up for sure.
Yeah, I'd say it'll fall neatly into that catalog where they say, top tier Nintendo products. You've got your Donkey Kong, you've got your Kirby, you've got your Mario, you've got your Zelda. They want to try and feed it into there. We currently have our production assistant in the background this week. FTAF's currently sending us all messages about how awesome
I'm getting
Kirby
nasty
is.
messages here.
Yeah, I think we should
about
stop talking bad on that little fluffy.
I didn't say anything
ball.
bad about Kirby. This is crazy. I like a little bit of challenge.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, they may turn it around this time. You never know.
Have you ever played
maybe
Kirby's
offer
Air
difficulty
Ride?
sliders?
Have you ever played Kirby's Air Ride? It's like the easiest game you could ever play. You just hold one button the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's a novelty. I think Kirby is a big novelty, more so than one that you do speed runs for, maybe, or to derive.
You
that
can do
challenge.
speed runs of anything. I mean, those people, you can speed run anything you want. Kirby is the secret hidden big Nintendo franchise that doesn't really get talked about a lot in the gaming world. Metroid gets a lot more press, but Kirby games, not only are there more of them, but they've sold a heck of a lot more than Metroid over time.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
the
I
Metroid
think
Prime
this
series,
next
which were
Metroid
huge.
game will be different.
You
I
reckon?
think this next Metroid game will outsell them all. I don't know, but I could be wrong. But I mean, you're right, Mr. Madness, in terms of and well over the years. I mean, like the first Metroid game is like second best selling Metroid ever. That's kind of weird for a franchise that's been out since 1986. So, I mean, have they not marketed the Metroid games a lot better, or I mean, I don't know, I'm just trying to see what the gap is. I know there wasn't a Metroid game for the N64, so
The
I
biggest
don't know.
issue was that they didn't have Metroid for a long time. Then they had the Metroid Prime games, which was like the best selling Metroid games, period. And then they had Metroid Other M. So they never. Oh, great, Kirby.
Oh yeah.
That kind of killed the Metroid series for a while. So they didn't really release too many Metroid games for one. People were like, just give us some Metroid, any Metroid. That's what they just want, some Metroid, you know.
Yep.
But Nintendo's going to do what they want to do. And Metroid might not be very big in Japan, and that's really their market still. For as much as it sells in other countries, their focus is Japan.
That could be
Yeah,
an
for
interesting,
sure, yeah.
interesting take, though. That Metroid is the everyman's game, but Kirby has some humble modesty. It's the one that releases games that sell well because it purports itself to be a little bit different. It doesn't cater to everybody. You go there because you enjoy what it offers. But maybe on a different level, perhaps focused on the kids. I don't know. Splatoon 3. What did you guys think of that one?
Yeah.
It's probably a rollback to the standard, but
It's Splatoon. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I've never
It
played a
looks all
Splatoon
right.
game.
I know that there's a big drive, or at least over the last 2 games, for the online play. Everybody getting together and playing through map playlists, and they have been pretty good about running events around it as well, I think. Have I got that right?
Yeah, for the
It's
most
actually,
part, the
to
online
me,
play.
it's funny because Nintendo doesn't really care about online play, but they'll release a third Splatoon because it sells. And
Yeah.
it's like one of the third shooters don't really sell in Japan. They don't. It's not really their bread and butter. But Splatoon has seemed to tap into that market of selling what is essentially a shooter in Japan. So Nintendo can get behind that.
Yeah. Well, it's more like graffiti, isn't it? More so than
Yeah, but
shooting.
still, I mean, like, it's still a shooter, you know. But
Yeah.
they've sold very well in Japan. I'm gonna pull up the sales figures for Splatoon 2 alone. I'll see if I can get that quick. But that's again what Nintendo mostly cares about is that Japanese market. 12 they've sold 12.5 million copies of Splatoon overall.
Yeah.
Okay. Celine, would you say that Splatoon is up there with the Tales of market in terms of fandom?
Well, Japan's very big on kind of like cutesy things. You know, there's the whole kawaii kind of concept. So I can see that they've kind of combined that, and then like the fashions kind of element is in there as well. So they've tapped into some of their like subgenres of like young adults and whatnot. So that's probably why it kind of appeals to them. So I can't say for sure whether or not like it's comparable in the strictest sense to the likes of Final Fantasy, Tales of. You know, I doubt that it's got the issues that Dragon Quest has, which is, I don't know if you guys know this, Dragon Quest is so popular in Japan. They are banned for releasing on days that are not public holidays or weekends because so many people will call off sick to play in the next game.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, Dragon Quest never translated very well. The only thing I can think of in the States is kind of like a Grand Theft Auto, or a lot of people call them sick the next day. If they ever release a Grand Theft Auto 6, people will go crazy for it.
It's a holiday game, definitely.
Pretty
It
much.
would have to be. Cool. All right. There wasn't anything much bigger. Celine, did you want to wax on Monster Hunter Rise a little bit more? Or were you pretty happy there?
I suppose I kind of gave the mechanic. I'm very confident that Sunbreak is the Iceborne for Rise. So, now, I have to say, I have met Ryozo Tsujimoto, the executive director of the Monster Hunter franchise. He is a wonderful guy. I've also met the composer for Generations, or Monster Hunter Cross as it's known in Japan, whose surname is also Kojima, not to be mixed up with Hideo. And they are, I know.
Sounds like you got connections. I think we're looking at our new Japanese correspondent.
It's just that there was a public event in London where they were showing off Generations, and they were there. Okay. And so no, it was quite fun actually, because I studied Japanese, so I do need to polish it again if I want to use it on a regular basis. But I did get to tell him. I got to tell him in his own language that Apollo has been a fan since Freedom Unite, which made him really happy. So there you go.
That's brilliant. Okay. Well, it's good to know that they've always had a solid fan base. I think people would always come back, but the more recent Monster Hunter Worlds that came out, I think, blasted open that a little bit, kind of the way The Witcher 3 did for the Witcher community.
I think that one of the things that probably did well for Monster Hunter is the fact that the Dark Souls trilogy had concluded, and because the mechanics have been similar in that you got this big monster to fight, so you got so they polished some of the mechanics that people didn't quite like as much, and then you've got this kind of big challenging boss, and then you go back to the hub, and I think that feedback loop was primed for a post Dark Souls world as such. So I think that helped them along a lot.
Now that you mentioned that, it did fall in that that space between Demon Souls getting its release on PS5 and Dark Souls 3 coming out. There wasn't much FromSoft action in there, I guess, except for Bloodborne maybe. But yeah, that's a really interesting theory. Never thought about that before. All right, we are starting to get on in time a little bit. So now is the opportunity. Impressions about our new Mario movie, which was also announced during the Nintendo Direct.
Yes,
Mr. Madness, do you want to kick us off there?
I am so hyped for this movie.
So you're happy with it?
I didn't realize, I thought it was live action, and I was even more excited that it was going to be a live action movie, which it is not. It's going to be animated, which kind of bummed me out a little bit.
No.
Haven't we already had one of those movies?
Live action. I'm not trying to have we're not trying to have a repeat of 1993 here. Come on, like no.
It's not gonna happen.
One of the worst movies ever made.
With this cast, you're not gonna have that kind of redo. The voice cast alone is kind of nuts.
Oh hell no!
They've lined up some top tier voice cast people, and
so
it is a big deal.
Before we go any further, just to quickly list off some of the big names, we've got Chris Pratt, who will be voicing Mario. Don't need to say what he's been in, I think. Guardians of the Galaxy as Star-Lord will be the biggest one. Anna Taylor-Joy will voice Princess Peach. She was playing the main character in The Queen's Gambit. Came out on Netflix last year. Charlie Day will voice Luigi, popular in Always Sunny in Philadelphia and a number of other things. Jack Black will be playing Bowser. Keegan-Michael Key for Toad. Seth Rogen for Donkey Kong. And I think he's only got a glancing appearance, but maybe there for a little bit longer. You've got Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong, Kevin Michael Richardson as Kamek, Sebastian Maniscalco as Spike, and then apparently Charles Martinet will be involved tangentially, but not for his titular role of Mario.
I could see him doing like when he goes, yee, things like that. Would still be his.
That's probably it. But what we're looking at here. What we're looking at here is a AAA movie cast for this not live action product, and it will be very interesting to see how it goes. do you think they've cast the right actors for these? Anyone want to jump in?
Well, Chris
we
Pratt
will
has
just
done
have
the
to wait and
voices for the Lego
see.
movies. So
We'll have to see.
We will just have to wait and see, and then we'll have to see. I mean, I don't. The way his voice sounds, I mean, it doesn't sound like he could do a Mario, but I mean, he's been in Lego movies like Mr. Madness said. So we'll just. I'm a little on the fences. Like I said, it can't be any worse than what we got in '93. That's.
One day we'll.
That's the cast alone looks good.
Yeah, and this is the biggest news that came out because it went everywhere. Nobody's talking about the cultural zeitgeist is not focusing on any of the games that were talked about at all. Everybody wants to talk about the Mario movie, and there's been so many memes about the movie that have been shared out there on just the main two characters of Charlie Day playing Luigi and Chris Pratt as Mario. Just those two.
Yep. And the most hilarious thing is I'd watch a film where they were playing the two roles against each other. Like that would be Chris Pratt in the way that he is normally in a comedic role, not in his more serious stuff that he's done recently. But then couple that with Charlie Day and you've got an experience on your hands.
It's funny because they would probably be opposite. I feel like Pratt is more of a Luigi looking guy because he's taller and skinnier than Charlie Day, who is a little bit smaller.
And that's probably the key thing to know that it's not going to be a live action because for one of the shortest characters, Toad, you have Keegan-Michael Key, who would be like 6'5" or something, wouldn't he? He's a tall bloke.
Yes. But a live action Bowser as Jack Black as Bowser, I would watch that.
I think even if it wasn't the plan, they'd get him in a mocap studio to do some, aerial kicks for Bowser or whatever his personality's going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, with
Celine?
Yeah, my sister was very obsessed with School of Rock when it was at its height, and I have watched the behind the scenes thing, and Jack Black is apparently very, very serious about his acting stuff, so I would not be surprised if he went along and did the mocap.
Yeah, but who knows what they've done already, right? Like there could be years and years and years of production that's gone in the process here that we don't even know about yet because they are looking at releasing next year, I think. Was there a date announced for it?
Yeah, December 21st, 2022.
There you go.
Yeah, next year.
And you got the creator of the series over, in a supervisory role, a consultancy kind of role. So we're not going to get the same kind of tackiness as we did with the 90s Mario movie. That's
I mean, there's real people involved in this, not just like some random people that happen to create Max Headroom. It's produced by the guy who's produced the Despicable Me movies. It's written by or directed by the guys who've worked on like Teen Titans for Cartoon Network. So like, there's actual people with talent involved on this.
That's the age we're in, though. Now, isn't it?
At least they want to get this right. They want to get this right this time. I feel they definitely want to get it right. They have to get it right because it's been very long since we've had a Mario movie.
You're talking like $1 billion. You're talking a potential $1 billion gross for a movie like this. Easily. If Despicable Me can make $700 million, Mario can make $1 billion in the worldwide gross, and that's a lot of money.
It's going to leave some very red-faced executives.
I think it will beat Sonic for sure. Definitely.
Sonic actually was a good movie. I was really surprised.
I liked it. I enjoyed Sonic. I don't think many other people did. It may have just been fashionable not to like it, though.
No, I don't know. Jim Carrey as Eggman, or whatever we're calling him these days, that was a perfect casting choice.
Yep.
Dr. Robotnik is an old European name for Eggman. I don't know why they changed it, but here in England, he had a Sonic comic, and he was called Robotnik for that for God knows how long.
Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Sega Mega Drive Genesis.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why they changed the name, but who knows?
I think they started going with Eggman with Sonic Adventure. I think that's when they started calling him Eggman on a regular basis. It's still the same name. Sonic just called him a giant egg or something during the game, and then since then, just Eggman, Robotnik. It's the same guy. So
yeah, it is.
The origin of all things.
I could see that working. So, you never know. If this is popular, could they make a Kirby movie? Maybe. Who knows?
That would be great. Maybe there's a Super
Zelda.
Smash Bros.
I'd like to see that. Zelda.
They do a Tekken.
They had a Zelda thing announced for the longest time, I think with Netflix, but I think it ended up getting canceled.
Mm.
It wasn't them bringing back the old animated show, was it?
No, they were going to just re-release the CDI version.
No.
I like those old Nintendo shows. Like, they're not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched. I think I've watched Legend, which is the movie that inspired Miyamoto to make Zelda. It's cheesy as heck, but it's not terrible for the age.
Yeah.
The thing with Zelda is, Link is like what 14, allegedly in the games. Isn't he like super young? I don't know
He's
how
not
that
old.
would translate to a movie.
I thought it was like 10 and 17 in like Ocarina of Time, but I think it's variable. So like if you see his appearance in say Breath of the Wild / Age of Calamity and Hyrule Warriors, I would say he's late teens in that.
I think we're primed for it though, because Pokemon is no more big. What's the best way to say it? It's bigger than it's ever been. And Ash Ketchum left at the house when he was 12 to go walking around the rest of the world.
He's been 12 for 20 years.
There you go, Simpson style.
Is the original Pokemon cartoon still running?
I think they wrap up like Ash's arc as such not too long ago.
Yeah, they've got different characters now, but I mean Ash isn't in it as much anymore, I think. But technically, they're still running the cartoon. There's still episodes being released for it.
All right, Finance says Ash is still in it, and it's still running based on what Finance is saying. It's on Netflix.
I'm seeing here there are 1,168 episodes.
That is not
imagine
uncommon.
Starting that from the beginning. Oh, you got a lot to go.
Yeah.
Good luck.
God, that's like next to the likes of One Piece and Detective Conan there.
Whereas me, I kind of tapped out of Bleach at 100 episodes and that was it. But anyway, we don't want to turn into the anime cast. It's really good to hear you guys are actually quite positive about the Mario film. I thought we were going to be chatting about it for a little while, about how crap this is going to be and how terrible it is an idea. But I guess we just knocked on that old film for a little bit and that's it. So it's really good to hear. And it's good that this kind of stuff came out of the Nintendo Direct. Any other hot takes that you guys have before we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I was just about the I need to figure out how to get. They haven't announced the controllers. I need to figure out how to get the controllers. And I know you were talking about it last week, how much you hated that Nintendo 64 controller, but my wife cannot play those 64 games without that 64 controller. I've tried to get her to play it other ways, but for like Yoshi's Story, she can't do it.
Just guys, wait one sec. I need to explain this a little bit because if I don't explain it just in case, because I did miss it as one of the big line items from this thing. Nintendo 64 and Genesis games were announced as coming to Nintendo Online at a new pricing tier, as well as Nintendo 64 and Genesis controllers being sold for $50 a piece. Now, Nintendo 64 controller obviously being one of the more complicated things to bring back because it is very unusual. Too Tall, tell us about your experience with the N64 controller.
I had to rip the whole thing. Like I didn't know how to hold it. I don't have one here, but yeah, I just had to grip the whole thing like across. Like the joystick is terrible. Like I don't know if you remember this, but they had those like Mario Party gloves. If you went too hard with the joystick, it'd like give your hands like blisters or something. So
yeah,
and it looks like the same from the picture. So I don't know how they're gonna do it because the joystick still looks like garbage, in my opinion. But
I mean, maybe it looks like
to answer
garbage,
your question,
they fixed the internal.
Yeah, hopefully they did fix the internal, but you have to be a member of the Switch Online service to be able to buy the controller. If you're not a member of that, then you can't buy it.
They haven't confirmed that yet, and I'm not a member yet, but if I need to, I will.
I can imagine scalpers selling them on it quite happily, like buying them at bulk and selling them on. But,
I'm not going to buy any of these controllers, but I'm not going to.
It's not that I want it, but my wife does. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, to be honest, this probably just shows my age a bit. I was like, we first got an N64 when I was 12, and that I was like near the end of its cycle. So, you know, I would say I'm a good few inches taller since then. So like, I don't know how it will feel in my hands these days. I haven't touched one in so long. The N64 in question was my brother's, and he's very much in the trade in when you're not playing them anymore camp and get something else. So
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Well, they might have had to redesign the product to suit certain guidelines for. I mean, the biggest thing hearing about the experience with the controller is that they would release a product that might have RSI related issues, like thumb stretch across different areas of the controller that could impact the experience. And if your target audience is people who were young enough to enjoy the product when it came out, they're going to have a whole different kind of issue with their hands than they had when they were a kid. So we could find that there's a difference in the product that gets released. Yeah, precaution would be a big thing. But in my opinion, it was one of the more innovative products, I think, at least in that sense, because they kind of went, all right, we need buttons for this, and this. You're going to need three hands to hold this thing. Let's make that a possibility. If you've got three hands, this thing can deal with it.
Nintendo's all for inclusion,
That's it.
They don't want to leave out the three-handed gamers.
Get them in. Yeah. But it could... Sorry, Celine, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll give them credit that it's that as far as ergonomics go, it was a lot better than its predecessors.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the game I remember, there's two things I remember. One, Pokemon Stadium, I think, was and its mini games was kind of like the best use scenario for that controller specifically. And the other thing is, I remember that whereas like say on DualShocks, the edges of the control stick were quite smooth, this one was almost like some kind of polygon, and it just it felt awkward to kind of move around. Yeah. That's the big thing I remember.
I'd say they thought, this is too smooth. Corners. Thumbs will get purchase on corners. We need more of those. But I'm glad you brought up the games aspect of it. Again, just very quickly, because we are starting to run out of time. What is the big N64 or Genesis game that you would play from the service using its respective controller, perhaps? What would you want to see?
Let me start with Genesis. I want to start with Genesis. I can play the Light. It's a Sonic Ultimate collection from the PS3. That was 2 generations ago. Then I got this. It's the Genesis collection from the Switch. Then I got this.
You may have to say the titles for
our audio listeners. And then I got this. A 6-button controller.
Yeah, the 6-button controller is not, by the way, coming to the States. Japan only.
Oh, wow.
For the Genesis 6-button. Big bummer.
Story for region locked.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways I could play Genesis games. So I'm not very excited about the games. Maybe Strider, because that's a Capcom game actually, but that was pretty big on the arcade. But otherwise, like all these other games I can play, even Echo the Dolphin, even though it's not on the current Genesis collection, I could play it on the Genesis Mini if I want. So, but
so tutorial is basically I don't need this.
But for the N64, I do want to play Sin and Punishment.
Okay,
it's a game that a lot of people did not play.
Yeah, sounds like it's a rarity thing
because it didn't come out in the States.
There you go. And importing and exporting is probably a better thing now than it was. Maybe you can get a good price product from Water Games if you wanted to purchase that not on the online store. But Mr. Madness, what would you play? Out of
well, they did say that they're going to allow for online gaming. So maybe some of the games that were multiplayer to play online. So like your Mario Karts, your Mario Tennises, things like that. I think those are the ones I'm personally looking forward to, but I know my wife, Pokemon Snap, the original, she's loving the new one, and Yoshi's Story.
Okay. Sounds good. Celine?
Yeah, I'm gonna second Pokemon Snap because I like it's like it was just one of those games that I mostly play with at like a friend's place, and when I heard it, it sounded really silly. But when I actually played it myself, I realized, this is a nice kind of chill out game.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
It's not stressful.
I am waiting for like a good price on the second one just because of that chill factor, and I liked the kind of, and I like nature documentaries as well. So there's that element to it too, like seeing the
that's really
Pokemon out
nice.
in the wild.
And there is a lot of photography style games that have come out inspired by it too. Yeah. Well, none of you have said it yet, but Pokemon Stadium, I think it was mentioned briefly a little bit earlier, but that would be my big N64 hit. But to be perfectly honest, I think any of the big Nintendo 64 titles that come out would hit me right in the feels, just because it was around the time when I couldn't get a console that I would rent that platform. I think I talked about it in the podcast last week, that I would rent the console from the old video game store model, and sorry, not video game store, video store that had games.
Yes. The old Blockbuster Video or whatever you had in Australia.
Video Easy. Yeah, rent that, play Mario Kart 64 for a weekend with a couple of mates, maybe stay up a little bit later than I should have, and return it in a couple of days. I think that would hit me really well. I think I'd probably
you imagine renting consoles in 2021, how that would just not work.
Wasn't that a proposition that Xbox was making? Leasing Xbox consoles as part of the service.
They still do that, by the way. It's $30 a month.
Okay.
And you get to keep it at the end, but you can do that. But I'm just saying, like, you go to you walk on down, video stores don't exist anymore, and rent the PlayStation 5. And like, what if the previous person didn't update it and you had to update it?
Yeah, it's not really
time. It's just, and you have to install the games. Like, it doesn't. There was the scenario where, like, if you tell kids these days, yeah, I used to rent, a Nintendo 64. Kids are like, how does that even work?
What is a VHS tape?
VHS? What do you mean you had to rewind a movie? You couldn't just start it over?
It wasn't
fine you if
they
would fine you if you didn't rewind those movies either. It was crazy.
I know. I worked in a video store.
They would fine you.
Yeah. On that note, though, I think video store employees would have a much better time because they're the ones who'd have to sit down with the consoles and do those updates, and I have to test it to make sure it works, and then just do a bit of a quick half hour of whatever game they would choose. I would think
that's just mind blowing to me that was a thing for a while, but it was. You get like the big giant ugly case, right? They had to carry it in like a giant suitcase.
Oh man!
But here, like at Blockbuster, they had like a big suitcase that was stored in.
That sounds like they were taking care of that product.
Probably.
Whereas I don't think the ones that I went to did.
You should have seen the cases that like films come in, like when they're going to the cinemas. Like my first paid job was working for one of the big cinema chains here in the UK, and they've
Is that like a handcuff your hand to the suitcase kind of thing?
No.
Only
but
for
the funny
big
thing
movies.
was they used to use like really poorly rated games as a cover name for the different film reels before they switched to hard drives, and the hard drives would be encrypted, so only the projectors could really decrypt them and such. But yeah, when it was the film reels, like I can't remember the examples off the top of my head, but they would deliberately put the tag on the outside would be this really rubbish film that no one wants, and inside it'd be like the next Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or something like that.
IRL encryption. I like it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Cool. All right. So we might move towards the end of the podcast here, just because we have gone in time a bit, and we respect your time, audience. We appreciate that you've come. We did have the idea of talking about our games of the year, just start to begin the discussion about that. Now, all I want you guys to do now is say the game that you're thinking of that you've played this year so far that you would put in contention. Celine, you're first.
Monster Hunter Rise.
Okay. Too tall?
Kays and the Wild Mask.
Okay. Madness?
Pokemon Snap.
Awesome.
And it's only because I really haven't played other new games this year. But Pokemon Snap is really good and fun.
Okay, cool. And I would say that mine is Death's Door. If that's one that any of you haven't picked up yet and you've got a PC that can run it, or maybe an Xbox, I think it came out on as well, that would be a really good dive. But as we mentioned at the top of the show, I think there's going to be a whole host of releases of new games in the lead up to December. So that's probably where we'll get a better opportunity to jump on those games and see what we've got. But hopefully we will approach Game of the Year very soon. Now, moving
I know
quickly,
mine's going to change. I can tell you that right now.
The year's not over yet.
That's it.
Just
getting those juices flowing, though. It'd be great if we can do a Game & Watch Game of the Year and then have our own lists as well. I think it would be really cool. All right, the release rundown for this week. There isn't too many big ones coming up, but I made note of a big few that's coming up this week. September.
How dare you? No big ones? Hot Wheels Unleashed.
That is a very hot item.
It's not $60, but it's a big one.
Very big one. You guys stop me
when I've
hit something that isn't that I'm not making a nutch fanboy for, and I'll get the jazz hands in there. September 28th, we've got Ghost Runner Next Gen coming to PS5, Xbox, and Xbox Series X. Ghost Runner came out last year, but it's getting a bit of an upgrade. Outer Wilds, Echoes of the Eye is a DLC for the original Outer Wilds game. Bear in mind, this isn't Outer Worlds, but Outer Wilds. And that's coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. We've got Lemnis Gate coming out for all platforms except Nintendo Switch. And we mentioned at the top, it's coming out on day one on Game Pass if you want to pick that up. September 30th, we've got Darksiders 3 coming to Switch. Hot Wheels Unleashed, jazz hands on all platforms. Bubble Bobble for Friends, The Baron's Workshop on PC. That just tickled me in a way I didn't think it would, so I thought it should deserve a mention. We've got The Last Friend on PC and Switch, and on October 1st, Phoenix Point, PS4 and Xbox One, and again coming to Game Pass. I think that was one of the Phoenix Point that's coming out. And then FIFA 22 on all platforms except Nintendo Switch.
No! FIFA's not going to be on the Switch?
I know, right? That's probably the ideal place to put it, right? But yeah, there you go. Maybe they don't like doing the microtransactions through the Nintendo Online platform. But there you go. Those are your big releases for this week. I think some of the biggest ones are coming out on Xbox Game Pass. So maybe pick that up and give it a go on the free trial if you haven't already. And of course, Game & Watch Game of the Year contender, Hot Wheels Unleashed. Pick that up.
They don't sleep on Hot Wheels Unleashed.
Give us an idea of why you're excited for it, because I know that this episode producer Fine is in the background. I'm sure it's typing away madly.
Have you seen the trailers for it? The graphics are out of this world. Looks like you're playing with actual Hot Wheels on like a gigantic track that you've always wanted to build, but never had enough Hot Wheels pieces.
Okay, so it's hitting the nostalgia.
Yeah, it's like you're playing a toy on a video game.
It can go south very fast, though. If the control is not good, it will be a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
Sounds like your inner child has come out to play with this one.
Yeah.
Yes, and my actual child, too, probably.
It would be very amusing.
I know you're not in the racing games much. So did you ever play with Hot Wheels growing up?
I mean, I know my brother had a couple of them when we were kids. I didn't play with them that much, though. Not so much the tracks. And he had like one Scale X trick set, but that's about it.
Celine, I might be right here, but I may be wrong here. Sorry, I should say. Guilty until proven innocent. But Hot Wheels may not have been the biggest car-based product for us in Australia or in the UK. I'm sure there was a number of other produced options that go alongside it. Kind of like the GoBots to the Transformers in America, maybe.
Maybe.
Is that what you'd say as well?
Now I moved around, I bounced around Europe a lot as a little kid, but I think when we did kind of settle into the UK, I would say Micro Machines probably were like that little bit more popular with the boys than Hot Wheels were. But that might be just basing it on the kids who my brother was associated with growing up. So Maybe, yeah, I think you're right. Like, so that, yeah,
Big
I would,
differences. Like
yeah.
that's just the way things go for us, though. I think there are a number of Micro Machines games too. I think
Yes.
just
Yeah, I
if
do
memory
remember
Yep.
one
Yeah,
on
serves.
there
the
are.
original PlayStation.
There was
Yeah. Okay.
the most memorable was the original Nintendo.
The one on NES, that was a good one. That
There you
was a
go.
good Micro Machine game. So,
Maybe this is the teaser for more of those Micro Machine games coming out as well. Who knows?
well, we will have to
Um,
wait and see.
we will. You guys will have to report back next week on how Hot Wheels Unleashed goes this week if you are dropping the money on it. Now we know what you two are playing. Celine, what are you playing this week?
So I'm continuing from what I said in my last appearance. So East 9 Monstrum Nox, and for our dinner time entertainment, Apollo and I are continuing the adventures of Great Ace Attorney with part 2 Resolve.
Nice. That's still hitting the right notes, the Ace Attorney stuff.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff. Look, I didn't want to dime you guys out entirely. You don't have to just play Hot Wheels, but Madness, what were you going to touch on this week? What are you
Oh,
playing?
I don't know. I've been playing a lot of MLB The Show. That's what I don't know. I'm a big
That's a good
baseball
game.
guy, even though my team
That's a good
stinks.
game. Who's your team?
I'm the Mets. I'm a Mets fan, and
Ooh,
they
sorry.
stink. Yeah, I know, but it's not even like the actual game. It's the collecting of the cards is like really hitting hard for me right now. Like I'm trying to get every card that you can get without spending money.
Okay, that's really good. And I guess these games let you live out your dreams. I can't imagine. I don't know much about baseball, but if the Mets don't do that well, maybe this is where you can
Yes,
realize
exactly.
those. All right, Too Tall, what are you playing this week?
Well, I dipped into some more Infamous Second Son, and then also a little bit of Sonic Colors Ultimate. I played some Cruising Blast. So I mean,
Oh
just
yeah,
some. Yeah, Cruising Blast is a good game. But yeah, I'm still getting Hot Wheels Finest. I promise. I promise I am getting it. So,
brilliant.
but yeah, so definitely. Second Son is a very, very good game. I'm really, really getting into it. It's much better than I thought, Matt. So
Oh yeah,
definitely, it's a good
I'm
game.
really glad you're enjoying it because when I picked up the PlayStation 4, I think it was about a year or two after it came out, I got that first, and that one was like a timed release with the console and built specifically to its specifications. So
Yeah,
hopefully it's still running incredibly well.
And another thing with that game too is it lets you use the PS4 controller that I have not seen other games take advantage of. Like it really does take advantage of that touchpad and then like moving the controller to
Yeah.
spray graffiti art or whatever. I think that's pretty cool also. So it's very, very good
Yeah.
game.
Just to give the audience an idea in case you haven't done it yet, this is an Xbox controller, but the whole mechanic there using the touchpad was
Yeah.
that you use a little touchpad on top to draw out the designs, but you could
something like this, and then
spray the graffiti. You got to shake the can up, and then you spray with I think it was the triggers.
Yeah, I can't speak for any VR games, but just about any other game I've seen just has not taken advantage of that in the way I thought they were going to take advantage of it. So,
but it's still on the PS5 controller, isn't it?
Yeah. So they're still there too, and it's you have to see a game that's so you have to see a game that's taking advantage of that. So that's very, very, very good. So I mean, I'm really enjoying that, and just dip into some more games next week, and nice. I'm excited for this week.
All right. Well, just to run off my games as well, I haven't actually dived on any new ones yet. I really want to drop the money on Deathloop, but I can't justify it after I did the Australian.
If I had a PS5, I would have Deathloop. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah,
I just don't have a PS5 or a PC that could run it, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah, and there's it seems to be more in that package than you expect when you buy it. There seems to be a lot of reports about online meta gaming because you can dive into other people's games and interrupt their progress, even though it's kind of a single player driven game, which is really interesting. But I've decided to step back into Arcane's back catalogue a bit and start Prey, which didn't get as much fanfare as it probably should have. And that's a very good one as well. I won't go too much into it, but it's a very good one to play, I think.
I believe that's on Game Pass, isn't it?
It just happens to be, yes.
Yes.
Otherwise,
There
I
you go.
probably wouldn't have dropped the money on it. So this is one of those advantages, especially when you
Yes.
drop a big Bethesda title. Most of those titles are going to be day one. Deathloop, I think, is the last one that won't be one of their day one releases for the Xbox Game Pass. Because
It'll be day one when it releases on Xbox, though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll call it that. Or there'll be a DLC or something with it.
Right. I'll just have to wait for it.
Yeah, that's okay though. It'll age like a fine wine.
Yes.
But what else we got? Prey. There was a couple of other ones I wanted to dive into as well, but I can't think of their names at the moment.
Was it the Wolfenstein games or Dishonored?
No, not Bethesda titles. I wanted to expand my horizons a little bit on that front.
Oh, well, you were saying the Arcane guys, and they did those are Arcane Studios games.
They did, and I played Dishonored and a little bit of Dishonored 2. They were. I did enjoy Dishonored, to be honest. I think, some of the mechanics, butted up against the way people wanted to play the game a little bit. It also, I could be wrong. There's a feeling when you play Dishonored, it kind of feels like you're a big thing that's just zipping about in an environment. I'm not entirely sure. I think I'm filling in a lot of my words. I think I'm starting to hit that hump, the 6 o'clock hump with 4 a.m. start. I'm gonna stop talking. Anyway, Prey I'll be tackling this week, and I'll see what else I can dive into from Arcane's catalog that way as well. All right, that is the podcast for this week. Thank you all so much for coming by this week. We'll try and do it again next week as well, if you can all make it. Again, thank you all for watching as well. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube every week, where we'll be streaming the podcast. If you want to listen on the audio instead of seeing, well, I know my terrible face every week, you can listen on your podcast player of choice as well. Remember, we are supported by you guys, so if you'd like to support the podcast, jump onto patreon.com/OurViewGaming, as this is an Our View Gaming production. And for as little as $1.50, you can support the podcast and we can create more content for you guys. There's going to be a few bonuses in there for you as well. Celine, Madness, Too Tall, thank you so much for joining me this week. Hopefully you play out some good games and there's some big news. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks very much.
Ciao.
Later.